I bought the dress in October. I know that sounds like a small thing, but when you are turning 70 years old and your son calls you on a Tuesday evening and says, "Mom, we want to do something big for you this year. Come stay with us in Florida. Let us throw you a real party." You go out and you buy a dress. It was navy blue, wrap style, the kind that makes you feel like yourself again, not like someone's elderly mother who needs to be managed and scheduled and occasionally remembered. I tried it on in the dressing room, and I stood there under those unflattering lights and I thought, this is going to be a good birthday. That was October. My name is not important. What happened to me is. I am 69 years old. I was, at the time. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I have lived here for 31 years, in the same house where I raised 2 children, kept a garden, buried a husband, and learned to be alone in a way that is different from lonely. There is a difference. It took me a long time to understand that, but I do now. My son, I will call him my son, because that is what he is. That is the only name for him that matters in this story. Lives in Tampa with his wife and their 2 daughters. He is 43 years old. He works in finance. He sends me a gift card at Christmas and calls on Mother's Day for about 11 minutes. I know it is 11 minutes because I started counting. I am not telling you this to make him sound like a bad person. I am telling you this so you understand the full weight of what it meant when he called me that October Tuesday and said, "Mom, your 70th is a big deal. We want to celebrate with you. Come down in April. Stay for a week. We'll have everyone over." The whole family. The whole family. I sat down when he said that. I actually sat down on the edge of my bed because my legs went a little soft. We had not all been in the same place since my husband's funeral 4 years ago. And even then, it was grief that gathered us, not love. To hear my son say the whole family like it was something we were, like it was still something real, I cannot explain what that did to me. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I started planning in November. I am that kind of person. I make lists. I write things down. I prepare. My husband used to tease me about it. He said I was the only person he knew who made a to-do list for relaxing. But preparation is how I show love. It is how I show up. I booked my flight in November for an April arrival, a direct flight from Columbus to Tampa, which cost more than I wanted to spend, but I thought, you only turn 70 once. I bought the navy dress. I ordered a photo book, one of those custom ones with pictures from the last 10 years, something I could leave with my son's family, something that said, here is who I am, here is the life I have lived. Here is proof that I existed in this family and that it mattered. I had the photo book finished by February. I told my neighbor about the trip. I told my friend from church. I told my doctor at my annual checkup in March when she asked if I had anything to look forward to, and I said, yes. Actually, my son is throwing me a birthday party in Florida. She smiled and wrote something in my chart, and I felt, for a moment, like a person with a future instead of just a past. In early April, I packed my suitcase. The navy dress went in first, wrapped in tissue paper. The photo book went in next. I packed for a week. I charged my phone. I confirmed my flight. I set 2 alarms, even though I never need 2 alarms. I was not going to miss this. The morning of my flight, I was up at 4:30. I drove myself to the airport. I parked in long-term parking because I would be gone a week. I walked through security with my little rolling suitcase and my purse and my navy dress inside. And I bought a coffee at the terminal. And I sat by the window. And I watched the planes and I thought, I am going to Florida. My son is throwing me a party. The whole family is going to be there. I landed in Tampa just before noon. I texted my son when I landed. Just a short one. Landed. So excited. See you soon. The kind of text a mother sends when she is trying not to be too much, trying to take up just the right amount of space. He had told me he would pick me up. We had talked about this. He said, "Don't worry about a rental car, Mom. I'll come get you. It's only 20 minutes from the airport." So I went to baggage claim. I got my suitcase. I walked out to arrivals and I stood on the curb in the Tampa heat, and after Ohio in early April, that heat felt like a gift, and I waited. I watched cars pull up and pull away. I watched families reunite. I watched a little girl run toward a man I assumed was her grandfather and jump into his arms so hard he stumbled backward laughing. I watched an older woman get folded into a hug by a younger woman, both of them crying, both of them holding on. I stood on the curb with my suitcase, and I waited. At 30 minutes, I called my son. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I left a cheerful message. I said I was outside at arrivals and wasn't sure which exit he was coming to, and just to call me back when he got a chance. Cheerful, light. At 45 minutes, I called again. Voicemail. At an hour, I sat down on a bench. My feet hurt. The heat was less of a gift now. A skycap nearby asked if I needed help, and I smiled and said, "No, thank you. I'm just waiting for my son. He's on his way." The skycap nodded and moved on, and I stared at my phone. At an hour and 15 minutes, I called my daughter-in-law. She answered on the second ring. There was noise in the background. Music. Voices. The unmistakable sound of people gathered somewhere, having a good time. And she said, in a voice that was careful, in the way voices get when someone is trying to say something difficult without saying it directly, "Oh, hi. Hold on. Let me just..." And then the noise got quieter and she said, "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I thought he called you." I said, "Called me about what?" She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her breathing. I could hear, faintly, the music still playing wherever she was. She said, "James got an opportunity. It's a long story. There was a work thing, a trip. It came up kind of fast. The party is next month now. We meant to call you. I thought he called you. I'm so sorry. I really am." I did not say anything. She said, "James feels terrible." I said, "Where is he?" Another pause. "The careful kind. He's in Atlanta. A conference. It was a last-minute thing for work. Margaret, I really am so sorry. We should have called. I know this is not okay." I sat on that bench outside Tampa International Airport with my suitcase beside me and my navy dress inside it and my photo book that I had spent 2 months putting together. And I looked out at the cars coming and going and the families, finding each other, and I said, very quietly, "All right." She kept apologizing. She said I could still use their house. The key was under the ceramic frog by the back door, that I should make myself at home, that she would be back in 2 days, that James would call me as soon as he landed. I said, "Okay." I hung up. I sat there for a while. I am not going to pretend I did not cry, because I did. Not loud crying, not dramatic crying, just the quiet kind that comes when something you have been holding up for months finally gets too heavy. I let myself have about 10 minutes of that. Then I dried my face, and I sat up straight, and I thought about my options. I could go home. There was a flight back to Columbus at 4 in the afternoon. I had checked the schedule on my phone, a reflex I cannot fully explain. Maybe some part of me had known, somewhere deep down, that I should always know the way back. I could get on that plane and be home by 7, and no one would have to know. I sat with that option for a long time. And then I thought, I am in Florida. I am 70 years old in 4 days. The sun is out. I have a suitcase and a navy dress and a week with nothing to fill it. And somewhere in this city there is a house with a key under a ceramic frog, and an empty guest room, and maybe a pool. I got in an Uber. The house was in a neighborhood with wide streets and bougainvillea and sprinkler systems. It was a nice house, big, the kind of house that photographs well. I found the ceramic frog. I found the key. I let myself in. and stood in the foyer for a moment, in the silence of someone else's life, and I put my suitcase down. I made myself a cup of tea in my son's kitchen, using a tea bag I found in the back of a cabinet. And I sat at the kitchen table, and I looked out at the backyard, and yes, there was a pool. And I thought, I am going to swim in that pool tomorrow. I am going to swim in it because I am here, and the water is right there, and no one can stop me. My son called that evening. He was sorry. He was very sorry. He said it just came up. This conference. He could not say no. It was important for his career. He said we would reschedule. He said April was always crazy anyway. May would be better. He said, "You understand, right, Mom? You know how it is." I said, "Yes." I said it because I did not yet know what else to say. There is a kind of shock that does not show up as anger right away. It shows up as compliance. It shows up as yes and okay and I understand. And you go along with it because you are still trying to make sense of what happened, still trying to find the version of the story where your son is not the kind of person who lets his mother fly to Florida alone for her 70th birthday. I spent the next 2 days alone in that house. I am not going to lie to you and tell you it was fine. It was not fine. I swam in the pool, yes. I walked to a little cafe down the street and had breakfast both mornings. And the young woman who served me on the second day recognized me and said, "Back again." And that small thing being recognized, being someone who was back again, meant more than it should have. I went to a bookstore. I bought 2 novels. I sat by the pool in the afternoons and I read and I watched the bougainvillea and I told myself I was fine. But in the evenings, it got hard. Evenings in an empty house are long. I would sit at the kitchen table after dinner and the silence would come in close and I would think about the photo book still in my suitcase. I had not taken it out. I kept thinking there was no point. Not yet. I would give it to my son when he got back, but my son was not back. My son was at a conference in Atlanta and had texted me once since that first phone call, just a quick, "Hope you're settling in okay, Mom." The kind of text you send when you want to feel like you checked in, without actually checking in. On my 3rd night, I called my old friend Ruthie, who I have known since we were both 32 and living on the same block in Columbus with babies on our hips and more hope than we knew what to do with. I called Ruthie and I told her the whole story, and Ruthie said exactly what Ruthie has always said in 40 years of friendship, which is, "Margaret, you listened to me." I listened. She talked for a long time. She did not let me minimize it. She did not let me say, "He's busy," or "It just came up," or "I know how he is." She said, "Your son let you fly to Florida for your 70th birthday and then went to Atlanta and did not tell you. That is what happened." Say it back to me. I said it back to her. It sounded different out loud. The 4th day was my birthday. I woke up at 7. I lay in the guest room of my son's house, in the bed with the decorative pillows I had moved to the chair every night because there were too many of them, and I looked at the ceiling, and I thought, I am 70 years old. I am 70 years old in a guest room in Tampa, Florida, and there is no one here. My son texted at 9, "Happy birthday, Mom, love you," with a cake emoji. Ruthie called and sang to me off-key for about 30 seconds and then said, "Okay, I'm done. I cannot carry a tune, and I think we both knew that." I laughed. It was a real laugh. I got up. I put on the navy dress. I had nowhere to be. There was no party. There was no whole family. But I had this dress, and it still fit. And I still liked the way I looked in it. And I thought, I bought this dress to feel like myself. So I'm going to wear it and feel like myself, even if it's just me. I walked to the cafe down the street. The young woman, her name was Deanna, I had learned by now, saw me come in, and then she looked again, properly this time, and said, "Oh, you look amazing. Is today a special occasion?" I said, "It's my birthday." She said, "Happy birthday. How old?" I said, 70. She said, 70. like it was the best news she had heard all week. She brought me my usual order: eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee with cream, and about halfway through my breakfast, she came back with a small piece of lemon cake with a birthday candle on it. Lit, she said, the cook insisted. I sat in that cafe in my navy dress, and I made a wish over a candle I had not expected, and I blew it out, and 3 strangers at the table nearby clapped. And I smiled so hard, my face hurt. I walked back to the house. I swam in the pool for an hour. I sat in the Florida sun, and I read my novel, and I let the warmth soak into my bones, and I thought, this is still mine. This day is still mine. Nobody can take a birthday. It was late afternoon when the car pulled up. I heard it from the backyard, the sound of a door, and then I heard the side gate, and then there was a voice, young, a little uncertain, saying, "Grandma?" I turned around. My granddaughter Emma was standing at the gate with a duffel bag over her shoulder and a grocery bag in each hand, and an expression on her face that was equal parts nervous and determined. She is 24. She lives in Orlando, about an hour away. I had not seen her in almost 2 years. She said, "I didn't know if you'd still be here. I've been trying to decide whether to come since yesterday." She held up the grocery bags. "I brought stuff to make dinner. I looked up your favorite recipe. I hope I got it right." I stared at her. She said, "Dad told me what happened, and I thought someone should be here. I thought you shouldn't be alone on your birthday." Her voice went a little unsteady on that last part. She steadied it. "I'm really sorry, Grandma. I'm really sorry he did that." I got up from the pool chair. I crossed the yard in my navy dress and I put my arms around her, and she put her arms around me, grocery bags and all, and we stood there for a moment in the late afternoon Florida light, and I held on. She stayed for 3 days. We made dinner that first night. She had looked up my pot roast recipe, had even called Ruthie to get a detail she could not find online, which Ruthie apparently kept secret for several minutes just to make Emma work for it. We sat at my son's kitchen table with pot roast and roasted potatoes and a bottle of wine Emma had brought, and we talked for 4 hours about her life, her job, her apartment in Orlando that she is slowly making into something she loves, about my life in Columbus, the garden, the neighbors, the ways I have learned to fill the days. We talked about her grandfather, my husband, and some of those stories made us laugh, and some of them made us cry, and some of them did both at the same time, which is how it usually goes with people you have loved and lost. I gave her the photo book on the second day. I had not planned to. It was supposed to be for my son, but Emma picked it up from the counter where I had finally taken it out of my suitcase, and she started going through it, slowly, quietly, and I watched her face move through all the years I had put in those pages, and when she got to the last page, she closed it carefully and held it against her chest for a moment. She said, "Can I keep this?" I said yes. On the last morning, Emma made coffee, and we sat on the back patio and watched the neighborhood wake up, the sprinklers and the birds and the distant sound of someone's lawnmower. And she said, "I want to say something, and I hope it doesn't come out wrong." I said. She said, "You deserve to be shown up for. You deserve to have people make an effort. And I think maybe you've gotten so used to being understanding and flexible that people have stopped thinking you need that. Like they think she's fine, Mom's always fine, but you're not always fine. You're a person, and your birthday should have been different, and I'm really sorry it wasn't." I looked at my granddaughter over my coffee cup, and I thought about all the ways I had shrunk myself over the years to make room, to make things easier, to not be a burden, to not be too much, to not ask for what I needed because asking felt like weakness, asking felt like demanding, asking felt like I was taking up space that wasn't really mine. I thought about the flight I had almost gotten on, the one back to Columbus, the one that would have taken me home before anyone even knew I was hurting, the one I didn't take. I said, "I'm getting better at knowing when I'm not fine." She nodded. I drove Emma to her car she had parked around the corner. She had not wanted to make things awkward by announcing herself before she knew how I was, and we stood in the street for a minute. She hugged me tight. She said, "I'll see you for Thanksgiving. I'll come to Columbus. I'll make the drive." I said, "I'd like that." I went back into the house. I packed my suitcase. I took one last look at the backyard, at the pool that had been my unexpected companion for a week, at the bougainvillea in the afternoon heat. Then I got an Uber to the airport. On the drive, my son called. He was home, he said. He was sorry. The trip had run long. He wanted to talk about rescheduling the party. He said May still worked. I listened to him talk for a while. And when he was done, I said, "I want to tell you something, and I want you to actually hear it." He was quiet. I said, "I flew down here for my birthday because you invited me. I stood outside the airport for over an hour because you didn't come. I spent 3 days alone in your house because no one was there. And on my actual birthday, the only person who showed up was your daughter, who drove an hour because she thought someone should be there. That is what happened. I'm not telling you to punish you. I'm telling you because I think you don't fully know. And I need you to know." He said, "Mom," I said, "I'm not asking for an apology right now. I'll call you when I'm home." I just wanted to say it out loud. I hung up. I sat in the back of that Uber, and I watched Tampa go by out the window, and I felt something settle in me, something that had been hovering, unresolved. For years, this question of how much to say versus how much to swallow, how much to ask for versus how much to simply accept. I had swallowed a great deal over the years. 11-minute phone calls and missed occasions and gift cards instead of visits. I had swallowed it all and told myself it was fine and smiled and asked nothing. I do not think I will do that so easily anymore. There is a thing that happens when you turn 70. Not to everyone, maybe, but to me. You look at the years behind you, which are many, and you look at the years ahead, which are fewer, and something in the arithmetic changes. Something in you stops being willing to spend what you have left on pretending, on shrinking, on waiting for people to show up who have shown you, repeatedly, that they might not. I got on my flight. I sat by the window. I watched Florida disappear below me and Ohio come up ahead, and I thought about Emma standing at the gate with 2 grocery bags and a face full of nervous determination, about Deanna in the cafe and the lemon cake with the candle, about Ruthie singing off-key on the phone for 30 seconds before laughing at herself, about all the small, unexpected kindnesses that had shown up in the week when the expected ones did not. I am not a footnote in my own life. I am not the person who waits patiently by the curb while everyone else gets picked up. I am not the backup plan, the flexible option, the one who will understand because she always understands. I am not someone whose presence can be casually rescheduled, whose birthday can be moved to next month without a phone call, whose feelings can be assumed to be fine because they usually manage to look that way. I am a woman who bought a navy dress and wore it to breakfast, alone on her 70th birthday, and made a wish over a candle she did not expect, and meant the wish, and felt it. I am a woman whose granddaughter drove an hour because someone should be there. I am a woman who finally said what happened out loud to the person who needed to hear it and hung up before they could redirect it. I have been a mother, a wife, a neighbor, a friend, a widow, a grandmother. I have been patient and flexible and understanding and easy and low maintenance and grateful for whatever I was given. I am still all of those things. But I am also the woman in the navy dress, and she is not waiting anymore. If you have a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, an older friend, someone who always says she's fine, who never asks for much, who makes things easy, please hear me when I say this. She has probably swallowed more than you know. She has probably shown up more times than she has been shown up for. She has probably sat in some figurative airport, or maybe a literal one, waiting for someone who did not come. Go to her. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait until you have a long enough window, until the work thing settles down, until things are less busy. Go to her now. Drive the hour. Bring the groceries. Make the pot roast. Sit at the table and talk for 4 hours about everything and nothing. You do not know how many chances you have left. Neither does she. But she bought the dress, and she is worth showing up for.